All right, thanks, guys. My name's Adam. I'm the Plant Power Coach. Today, I am with George. And George, thank you for your time today. Please, how you feeling?
Yeah, cheers, Adam. Good to speak to you again. And yeah, feeling good, although a little bit tired because I haven't had much sleep. But hopefully, I'm not too cobwebby in the brain for our talk today.
No, that's perfect. I do have. We'll start off with the basic questions, and then we'll build up towards the more difficult ones. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I know from watching a lot of people, such as yourself, such as Ed Winters. I want to start off by saying that I have learnt since going vegan, not just about the benefits of going vegan, but I've learnt a lot of new words. So what I want to start off with is by stating if I myself or someone else might be watching who doesn't understand a particular word, I'm just going to say, could you please elaborate and explain the definition of that word so we can actually get people who are watching to understand? Because I know myself, there's plenty of words that I've learned that I knew. Even if I do know the word, I might get you just to elaborate on the definition of it. Are you okay with that?
That's yeah, more than okay. That's a very good idea. Yeah, we
Yeah.
want to make sure that everyone can understand what I'm actually saying.
Exactly, exactly. So obviously we're going to start off with a basic intro. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your story?
Yeah, so I'm currently living in Bristol in the UK, though I was raised just outside London. When I went vegan, I was active. I went vegan in 2013, and I got into sort of street activism and stuff in about 2016. And I was active like in the London scene. Now I'm active in the Bristol scene where I am now. So I'm an organizer of the We the Free group for the Bristol and Bath.
Yep.
So We the Free is a street outreach group where we show the public slaughterhouse footage and speak to them about what they've just witnessed on the screen. I run the Carnism Debunked.com website, which is where you can find all your, answers that you can just copy and paste whenever you're in an argument with a carnist online, or the
Yep.
standard anti-vegan arguments are there. And yeah, I do a few other like bits and bobs here and there online. Like I'm very active on social media, got like a YouTube
Yep.
channel and very active posting like memes and stuff on my Instagram and whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah, your memes are actually one of the best memes I've ever seen before. Honestly, I don't know where you get the
Cheers,
ideas
dude.
from. Um, I think you kind of answered the question already in what you've just stated, but just in case it's not accurate, how long have you been vegan yourself?
Yeah, so I've been vegan 10 years now. So I
10
went
years.
vegan in, yeah, January 2013. And that was after watching Gary Yourofsky's speech
Yep.
in late 2012.
And oh, you've answered my next question already. What made you go vegan? Is it like based just like was it like kind of like a switch, or was that the main trigger, or was it kind of starting from there?
It was starting from there. So I would love to be able to say that I was amazing and decent enough a person to just watch that speak and go boom and
Yep.
went vegan, but I didn't. I dicked around for a few
Yep.
months, like most of us do when we're
Yep.
non-vegans. We're very lazy with that. So I watched it, and it was like boom, like my life changed from watching the
Yep.
speech. But I dicked around for a few months, replaying all these little arguments in my head, and then I think I watched some of the like what I think I watched forks over knives, and it kind of
Yep.
sweetened the deal, which is
Yep.
kind of selfish, whatever. But it was Gary's speech was ultimately the catalyst.
Yep. I think personally, I told you already that vegan gains was kind of like a main trigger for me. And the
Mm.
the the Gary video, I think what happened when I first started watching the Gary video, I think a friend of mine had shared it or something, and I knew they were vegan. This was before I was vegan. I was based practically anti-vegan at that point. And as soon as I started watching it, I knew what it was about to be, and I literally put my head in the sand. I just switched it off and didn't like talk about it again. I then later rewatched it as a vegan, and I'm like, man, I'm such an idiot, honestly.
Right.
Yeah. Um, so um, this isn't the kind of basic questions that I've got lined up for you, but why do you think the word veganism exists? Because for me, like, there's no word for someone who's against murder or someone who's against rape. Like, why do you feel that that word even exists?
Yeah, it's a real shame, isn't it, that the word even has to exist, because it's just a moral obligation to leave
Yeah,
others alone and not violate their bodily autonomy.
yeah,
But when you live in a world where the dominant belief system is the other way, that's the invisible ideology,
yeah,
carnism.
yeah,
So carnism, it's the dominant ideology, and therefore it's kind of the invisible one. It's the thing that it's the ideology people have that they don't even realize is an ideology. So anything opposes that, that's seen as the out there thing, and it has to have this little word for it. Oh, you're a vegan. Oh, you're one of those weird people who leaves animals alone. So that's unfortunately the messed up world that we live in.
Yep. Now, obviously, you mentioned that you run carnismdebunked.com. I understand what carnism is. Again, some people watching may not actually know what that is. Could you please define carnism to our viewers?
Yeah, so the term carnism basically means the sort of psychological mechanisms and the ideology behind why we choose to oppress certain animals in certain ways. A lot of people think, that it's not a great term to use for vegan advocacy because it's quite strongly related to just meat alone. That carn bit means like flesh.
Yep.
But my response to that is there's no term that's perfect. I mean, veganism is nothing to do with vegetables. So why have that veg at the start? There's no perfect term here to use, but it's ultimately it was coined by the psychologist Dr. Melanie Joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd really urge anyone listening to look into her work. She's wrote a brilliant book called something like Why We Love Dogs, Eat Cows, or something like that.
Yeah.
And she explains really sort of the phenomenon of carnism and what's going on in our brains when we justify doing certain things to certain animals, and how we view the world and how we view people who don't share our belief system, i.e. vegans, when we're carnists. And it's all very interesting stuff.
She's the one who developed the three N's, or what defines the three N's, correct? Like we usually justify things that are terrible as normal, natural, and necessary, right?
Yes. And this is how it would seem all oppressions throughout history have been justified by the oppressor. If you look at, for example, the global slave trade, slavery was always justified by those three N's: normal, natural, and necessary. And we're seeing the same now with animal slavery. And I just want to say that human slavery was inspired by animal slavery. So animals were the first ever slaves. They were enslaved, and they started being bred and oppressed in, I think, what would be like ancient Sumer or around that sort of region. And we got the idea of oppressing humans from animal farming. It all came from that idea.
I've got a bit of a question here, which I think will be a little bit controversial. We may or may not agree on it. I'm not too sure. I have put it in the basic questions nonetheless. Do you have vegan friends? If so, what do you think of them?
Do I have non-vegan friends, do you mean?
No, sorry. Yeah. Do you have non-vegan friends? My mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have non-vegan friends.
Yep.
They need to sort their shit out. But for a lot of them, they probably won't. I take the Gary Yourofsky position with non-vegan friends. We won't fall out if you're just honest about it. There have been people who acquaintances, people I went to university and stuff, who have kind of just fallen out of my life, or I've fallen out very badly with, because they were starting shit on my status and giving all the disgusting arguments and excuses and the apathetic, just the pro animal abuse comments. But, my non-vegan friends who I do have in my life, while I'm very sure the vast majority of them are just not going to change, I understand that we live in a world where most people just aren't ready to change at the moment, and that just sucks. That's just because humans sucks. They know full well what I think of their decision to eat, and they see my posts. They're following me on social media. It's not like everyone followed me. And like the Gary Yourofsky kind of position is, if you're honest with me, I guess we won't have a fallout. Most of my non-vegan friends will just say, look, I completely understand the arguments, and I don't even have any excuse. You are right. I'm just like lazy. And it sucks. It sucks. But that's my friends. It's family as well, and it's very hard as a vegan when you have so many people in your life. I mean, I've spent more years of my life as a non-vegan than a vegan. That you can't I know some vegans have, but I can't do it. I don't have the heart to do it. I don't have the
Yeah.
heart to cut people who I love out of my
Yeah.
life, whether they're my friends or my family.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sucks.
Absolutely. I very much agree with you, especially considering that over the long term, the more people see my post, the more people engage with me. Even if it's a case from taking them to anti-vegan to I'm going to include more plant-based foods into my
Mm.
diet. I like that to me is obviously it's not ideal, it's not the end goal, but it's still progress in my eyes. There's a keto guy that I know, and he's just doing this keto thing for ages. He's trying to lose weight. He hasn't lost any weight, and I keep talking to him about it. And now he's at the point where he's literally sending me messages of all these plant-based foods, and he's like, "Oh, I tried this. This is great, blah blah blah." And it's like the opposite of keto food, and I'm like, "Great, like that's awesome." And
Yeah,
yeah, he doesn't have
it's
any jokes anymore.
it's yeah. I share your exact view on this.
Yeah,
While we're both abolitionists ultimately, right, and we want
yeah,
people to be vegan, um, we've got to take the small victories with some people
yep,
because some people are simply just never going to change.
yep,
That's just the current system we live in.
yep,
I don't know if you've seen that scale that's like the early adopters, like the laggards, the late adopters or something.
yeah,
I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's how people, and we're the early adopters or the innovators, right? Most people are just going to be like the laggards or the late
yeah,
adopters and just won't change throughout their life, or it'll be very, very late. And I take the small victories with friends and
yep,
family. To think that some of my non-vegan mates and many of my family members, in fact, they're now, they just no longer drink cow milk at all. Like, people
yeah,
you would never have imagined doing this.
yeah,
Or I go home now to see my parents, and like the fridge is just full of vegan stuff. Like it's
yeah,
rare that there's ever a fucking animal product in the house now when I go to see my parents, and it's like, I'll take that for the meantime because
yeah.
some people ain't changing.
Absolutely. And on the flip side to that, like this is an example. The example I used was an example of kind of like a positive, long-term goal. Whereas I've had a instance with someone on social media, and this is
Mm,
I would have said a close friend, and he made a post which was like it was like a blog post or something about people in China or something eating shark fin soup. And it's
yes,
ironic because the post before that on his feed was like this steak that he just ate.
right.
I was like, and I made a comment. All my comment was like, what about the other animals? Like that was it. And it just blew up from that, honestly. And it was just like, what you think you're better than me? And I was like, do you, and I responded, do you think you're better than people who eat shark fin soup? And
Yeah,
it was just like,
perfect.
yeah. And then it was like this, everything he said, I was like, just repeating back to him his own
Yeah,
logic, just back to him. And it got to the point where his wife, his other friend or something who joined in the comment section had just deleted me, like or blocked me. And I was like, I'm just asking a question here. Like I'm stating, like if I was an alien who just dropped down to Earth, these are the exact questions I would be asking you. And
yeah.
it was a neutral
Well,
position the whole time.
Well, what's happened there, mate, is you've struck a nerve. They
Yeah,
know deep down that you got them. You
yeah,
got them in the corner there with that one.
yeah,
Even though you weren't being a bastard by getting them in the corner, you weren't
yeah,
even being that much of a dick. You actually
yeah.
tried to help them, if anything.
Oh yeah.
You're being a dick, but in a good way.
Oh yeah.
So it's like you're just ribbing your mate a little bit and saying, well, you replied with that excellent retort there. Do you think you're better than the people eating shark fin soup?
Yeah.
But he knows that you are right, and his
Yeah.
family knows that you are right, and that's the problem. People,
Yeah.
ask people why they hate vegans and stuff, and they'll come up with a load of bullshit. Oh, they do this, they do that. The real reason is because they know that we're right. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah.
If put it this way, vegans weren't ever seen as a threat to the status quo in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. So no one hated us.
Yeah.
They just thought we were kind of funny and weird. These like
Yeah.
hippies. The hatred is starting to come now because now we pose a threat. Like plant-based meats have always
Yeah.
existed, right? Always. They've been making seitan in like ancient China. You're talking like thousands of years ago. And ever since you and I have been alive, we're fairly young, right? There's been plant-based meats on the market. No one was ever going, why don't you just eat chicken?
Yeah.
Why have you got to eat stuff that
Yeah.
resembles chicken? You know, no one said
Yeah.
that in the early noughties or the 90s. No one said that. They're saying it now because
Yeah.
veganism is now the threat.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I've got a few more questions which are a bit more on the challenging side. Not so
Mm.
much challenging, also very kind of like important discussion. When we talk about veganism, I think it's important to use some form of key performance indicators. Like how are we doing? Are we going forward? Are we going backwards? Are we plateauing? I've heard about heard on places like plant-based news of statistics ranging from what I remember to be 1% to 10%. How, first of all, how do we even measure this? And second of all, like, how can we know if we're making an impact or not?
Well, we can certainly know that we're making an impact because you and we're experts on our own. Melanie Joy will tell you this, that vegans are experts on their own experiences.
Hmm.
And you and I know better as vegans than anyone how much this country has changed and adopted veganism, and it's becoming more mainstream. As I said
Yep.
a moment ago, it's now being seen as a threat. It's actually been
Yep.
taken seriously.
Yep.
So you and I can literally, it's just visual evidence that's all around us. The shops just crammed with plant-based meats and milks, and people talking about vegan now. You hear the word veganism mentioned now every day, even if you turn on the TV or read the papers.
Yep.
Whereas, you turn on the TV 5, 6 years ago, it was just you were bombarded with just adverts of flesh, and there was no mention of veganism. And now, there's a huge shift in that.
Yep.
So we know from that, and there are you can see statistics and stuff like the number of vegans in the UK has risen by 300%, and it's just not uncommon now to meet a vegan.
Yep.
We got the vegan camp out next month. I think 11,000 tickets or something sold already,
Mm.
and that's just one vegan festival that
Yep.
not every single vegan in the country is even aware of, right? So, and look how well attended that is. But as for these studies and stuff, there are sampling flaws, and I think they do overestimate actually the number of vegans in the most part. That doesn't mean the number of vegans hasn't exploded
Yep.
exponentially. It has, but it's not. I've seen some ridiculous studies put out there that say stuff like 7% of people in the UK are now vegan. It's like, bro, that would mean if you were to walk down the high street past
Yeah.
500 people, you would pass 35 vegans.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, bro.
Yeah.
No, it's not, anything as ridiculous as like 7%. We are
Yep.
still the minority.
Yep.
But this comes with, I've done little Instagram posts on this before about like problems with like what's called self-identifying. When these researchers ask vegans to say, are you vegan? Ask people say, are you vegan? Well, most people who say they're vegan, I don't think even are vegan.
Yeah.
Because you go to some of these like
Agreed.
vegan events and stuff, and you'll be like, and you'll meet people, and they'll be like, yeah, I'm vegan. I only eat fish, once a month or something like
Yeah.
that. It's like, dude, you're not a vegan. So that's the problem with self-identification. There needs to be
Yep.
really strong controls when a researcher takes a study and said, right, you say you're vegan, we're just going to check, blah blah blah, this you've got to tick like a lot of boxes.
Yep.
So yeah.
Absolutely. I have my own theory with it as well. We are, like you said, we are a massive minority. However, I predict, I can't tell you when, but my theory is that it's going to just spike. It's not even going to, like, it's slowly being consistent, but I think just like 1 year, it's just going to go like everyone's kind of had enough. Like anyone who, I believe carnists are going to be the minority, and they're going to just be like looked at like kind of smokers or something like that. You know what I mean?
When do you think this is going to happen? I like your
I,
optimism, but when
I,
is this going to happen, Adam?
I mean, yeah, no, like this is just a plain theory based on
Hmm.
my prediction of the fact that it's like a lot of what's happening now is, I think, everything from advertising, all those sorts of things, like you said, they're slowly getting better. There's a lot less flesh being shown. Generationally speaking, people, I think, in the new generation are being more accepting, more open to it, where the next generation, they're just going to be like, okay, cool, we can feed everyone plant-based. Why wouldn't we? This, like,
Hmm.
again, this is just something that I theorize. I can't even prove it. I can't show you any statistics. This is just something that I mean, I'm not saying this based on, the fact that I want it to happen, although it would be good. It's just something that I predict would happen, and it'll be a huge shift. Again, similar to, I think, smoking, because when I grew up, every single person around me, especially when I was living in Spain, was a smoker, crazy smoker. And now I go back to Spain, and it's like hardly anyone smokes, which is extremely strange.
Right, I did hear that about
Yeah.
Spain actually. Well, I didn't hear what you've just said, the recent thing that hardly anyone smokes now, but I did hear that like it was pretty crazy the amount of people. Like I went to school with a Spanish lad and he
Yeah.
said like, "Oh mate, you think you because I we're talking about like how ridiculous it is that people at school like smokers and stuff and
Yeah.
how just trying to be cool and why do people do it?" And he's like, "Mate, you should see Spain. It's crazy. It's like
Oh yeah.
everyone at school smokes." I was like, "What?"
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, I like your optimism there. I think one of the huge things that could drive towards a vegan world could be the whole plant-based meat thing.
Yeah.
For as long as no longer whether we call that a vegan world or not, but ultimately it could see the end of the animal holocaust if um the farming industry ultimately gets replaced
Mm.
by lab meat.
Yeah.
But big ag is going to see that as a huge threat. They're going to try
Yeah.
and pull out all the stops, aren't they, to stop that from happening?
Yeah, I guess that's where the theory comes from, where I think it's going to be so much push where these big companies are going to get to the point where they're just like, if we can't beat them, join them. So if you're gonna sell products, like, perhaps now from a cost point of view, like, I'll give you an example. Downstairs there's a pub, and they've been making their potato mash with cow butter for all this
Mm,
time, and now that they've added a vegan menu, they've just added plant-based butter, and they just don't even need it anymore. They don't need the
yeah,
the cow one anymore. So it's just created a huge shift, kind of practically overnight. So that's again where all my theory is coming from, is like all these companies, all these big industries, although they're the biggest cause of the problem, I think that they can also be the largest cause of the solution. So just by getting to that point where you take down one company, another company, and the other company is going to have to follow suit, and they're like, well, you know what, people are
yeah,
paying for it. Well, why wouldn't we swap these things, especially considering that, the
yeah.
the meat is rated 10 out of 10, but the plant-based option is rated 9.5 out of 10, just because people know it's the plant-based option. We can't really justify 0.5% based on the fact that, we're killing all these animals, and there's all these subsidies for it anyway. So why not just go straight to the plant-based option?
I mean, flora was a huge change, wasn't
Yeah.
it? We did see a lot of criticism within the vegan movement recently when, the Greggs sausage roll came out and the McPlant and stuff, and people were saying, no, it's bullshit that, buying vegan products from vegan companies changes companies. Name one company that's even changed. And it's like Flora, like
Yeah.
they're about like 90% of their products. Like this was one of the
Yeah.
biggest dairy brands in the UK. Like 90% of their products now are, but they have just that one product, I think, Flora Buttery, that has
Mm.
buttermilk in it. All
Yeah.
their other butters are completely plant-based.
Yeah. Exactly. But we're going to find out. I hope it's during our time, but we'll see.
Yeah.
The next question is kind of trying to think outside the box a little bit, and I guess you could say I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, although, like, I'm not really. Do you think there's a gray area for veganism?
I think veganism actually has loads of little grey areas. I
Hmm.
think the main part is important that you don't see animals like as resources and you
Yep.
don't fund animal oppression
Yep.
as far as is practical and possible. I guess that's where the grey areas come in because
Yep.
you have that little statement. There are things that are just like, yeah, I would just say are just objectively not vegan. Like if
Mm.
someone just buys a flipping animal product from the store,
Yep.
like to eat or to wear or something, yeah, that's just not. There are these strange little grey areas though, like stuff that people might be disappointed to hear me say that I don't have a great answer for myself,
Yeah.
like someone, I don't know, dumpster diving or
Yeah.
something. Like I don't know, if someone if someone goes dumpster, if someone's like reducing their impact to such an extent that they literally don't buy from any of the supermarkets, they don't buy any plastic, which ends up harming animals, but so instead they dumpster dive and eat
Yeah.
some animal products from the dumpster or
Yeah.
something, or eat some roadkill or something like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I don't have like a super, like, I would just say like, you know, oh dude, that's a bit gross, or do you think that's promoting like the idea that animals are still food sources
Yeah.
for us? But they haven't actually oppressed anyone. They haven't funded anything. They haven't
Yep.
even caused any harm to animals, which
Yep.
when we cause harm by buying something from a supermarket. So there are grey areas here and there, I do think, but there's certain things that are just like very, I think, objective.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think that the question stems from I think Ed Winters created a video based on the example of owning a leather couch and
Mm.
learning about veganism, essentially going vegan, and then having a friend come over and going, "You have a leather couch." And I think I can't tell you the exact things what they were, but he said that you practically have four options. None of them are ideal. It's just about saying like, what's the type of person you're going to be. You could throw it away. You can just have it and accept the fact that you've had this from your past. I guess
Yep.
that's where the question stems from, really. So, stuff like that.
Yeah, so my deal with the whole old animal products thing was to get rid of them ASAP.
Yeah.
But I understand that, you know, I think it fits in with the practicable and possible thing that, you know, often you might not have, you know, especially in this cost of living crisis, you might not have the money to buy a new thing or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, when I first went vegan, I was very happy and quick to just chuck out like
Yep.
my like cow flesh
Yep.
shoes, my wool jumpers and everything. I just chucked them straight
Yep.
out and I saw no issue with it. But I understand
Yep.
some people might not be in a position to be able to do that. And, you know, I won't, you know, I say to, if you're in a position to, of course, chuck all that stuff out.
Yep.
But if you can't, you just can't.
Yep. I do have a few more questions left, but I want to make sure I get through the more important ones as well before our time runs out.
Yeah.
This is a topic we had in person when we met up for your birthday. What's your position on having children?
Oh, completely against it. I'm an
Yep.
antinatalist.
Yep.
I'm very strongly pro-adoption.
Yep.
So thank you to all those amazing people out there who want to adopt a child and give a child a home.
Yep.
But no, I am an antinatalist, and I think creating life, especially human life, is wrong. I'd see an inconsistency there. We say adopt, don't shop
Yep.
when it comes to the breeding of animals, but
Yeah.
then we breed humans. It's like
Yeah.
what instead of adopting. I do see that as a species position, but at the same time, I do not hate on people who don't share my position. I want this vegan movement to be cohesive. I want everyone to be included in the
Yep.
movement, regardless of whether they're parents or not, regardless of whether they're antinatalists or not. Even though I do see it as inconsistent to be a vegan and not an antinatalist, because I think the two philosophies match so well, and there's kind of double standards there if you're one and not the other. I think we ultimately need you know, it's a divisive subject, and I want to have a cohesive movement. And many
Yep.
of the best people in my life are parents and
Yep.
stuff. So, you know, it's not something I hate people over.
Real quick, the definition of antinatalist, which I'm aware of, but for the people watching.
Yeah, so antinatalism means to assign like a negative value to birth, and basically just to be against procreation, against creating
Yep.
life. And there's two, I guess, fundamental principles behind sort of David Benatar's philosophy of antinatalism. He's the person who coined the term. He's a professor of philosophy at the University of Cape Town. So there's the misanthropic reasons for not
Mhm.
wanting to procreate, i.e., like recognizing that humans suck and the harm that human's going to cause, and then the kids they're going to have, and the
Yep.
potential abuse and suffering they're going to cause. And then there's I guess you know, the altruistic principle on the human side, as in when you create a sentient being, you're creating suffering from nothing. You're creating
Mhm.
someone who is going to experience school, work, cancer, death. That's
Yep.
the system that we live in. And why they're not going to miss by not existing. It's not like they suffer. It's not, oh no, I didn't exist and
Yeah.
experience the joys in life, because there are many joys in life,
Yeah.
so it's better to it's important. The only moral urgency is to avoid suffering, not to
Yeah.
create pleasure.
Yeah.
Creating pleasure is not morally urgent. Only
Yeah.
preventing suffering is.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring it down to our last question, which I think I want to kind of end it on as well. Activism. Is it important for a vegan to do it? And if so, what exactly qualifies as activism?
It's crucial for vegans to do activism, because veganism without activism, I did a post about this recently, is ultimately nothing, because when you go vegan, all you're doing is a non-action. It's
Yep.
just like you're not buying a product from the shop.
Yep.
Guess who else does that as activism?
Yeah.
Dead people, dead
Yeah.
non-vegans. When a non-vegan dies, they're vegan, So a vegan who says, well, I'm doing enough already by just being vegan.
Mm.
A bacon troll could literally just say, well, I'm going to die, and I won't ever buy a single animal
Yep.
product ever again.
Yep.
So here's the thing. When you go vegan, you can't just stop buying animal products and call it good. You have to reverse the shit you've caused. Think of all the harm and the oppression, the abuse that you've caused throughout your life as a carnist. You've got to actually do something to offset that
Yep.
negativity you've caused in the world. That, think of all the animals you've made suffer in your life. You've got to offset that. You've got to actually get out there and help change people.
Yep.
How quiet you think the animals want us to be. So yeah, I would say it's crucial.
Yep. And like, what would you say? I guess what would you say doesn't qualify as it? Like for me right now, I'm definitely not doing the level of activism say you're doing. For me as a coach, I like to think that I'm bringing in customers or potential customers who are not vegan and actually teaching them how to improve their health, their physique, their performance, which are the selfish things that they want, but doing them while also considering the ethics and morality of their actions.
Yeah, and apologies that I missed out a part of your question just
That's okay.
beforehand. Yeah, about what counts as activism and what doesn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything that you can do at all to speak up for animals or to get people to go vegan or to liberate animals is activism. I'm not an activism shamer. Even though people think I'm a shamer just because I say it's crucial that we do activism.
Yeah.
Anything that you do to speak out or do something is activism. That includes signing petitions.
Yeah.
That includes making social media posts.
Yeah.
Most of my activism is social media based.
Yeah.
I'm only out on the street 2 weekends a month or so.
Yeah.
But most of the stuff I do is online. So stickering, chalking, writing an email to like a council or a business about this cruel abusive practice they've done to animals. This all counts as activism. Anything that you can do to be a voice for the oppressed is activism.
Absolutely, I love it. And one more thing just to add to that, where's the best place for people to reach you, and where's the best place, like social media, or even if they're interested in activism, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, so if they want to reach me, they can contact me on any of my platforms. My username is Carnism Debunked on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Twitter. I've also got the Carnism Debunked page on Facebook, and I'm George Martin on Facebook if you want to reach me via my profile, or you can email carnismdebunked@gmail.com as well. I'm reachable via email. So I'm reachable in all those ways. And then suggestions for getting active. If you want to do what I'm doing with the street activism stuff, go to activism.wtf. That stands for We the Free. Activism.wtf, so not .com, /get involved. And you can join your local We the Free group there, or set one up if you don't have one in the area, and you can get out on the street and get changing some people.
Perfect. I'm going to get you to share that with me, and then I'm going to put that in the description below this video for anyone who's interested in finding out more. Thank you so much for your time, George. Yeah, that's it for today's video. Thanks for your time, and I'm going to stop recording now.
Cool. Yeah, cheers, Adam.
Thanks.